Hello, everyone. Jessica Peterson here with Purpose Powered People, and here's an interview that I have been so excited to conduct. Hello, Gary.
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Doing amazing. So, Gary Barnes, everyone, is very dear to me, and I'll never forget when you first came to an event. It's been almost a year now, and you came to an event that my company was a partnership in. And I'll never forget, people like, Gary Barnes is here, Gary Barnes is here. And I thought, wow, Gary Barnes is here, so excited. And ever since then, I could see why everyone is so excited. You're just one of the most amazing human beings. And this morning, even walking through a challenge in my business, I'm grateful for you on that. And I'm super stoked to be speaking at your event. This is number 29 you have coming up, right?
Yeah, number 29, and it's actually the second time you've been on my stage.
Oh, that's right, it is. I always have so much fun. I know, I'm so excited. And anybody who has not been to one of your boot camps is really missing out. They have to come. Amazing people, content, relationships, connections. I could go on and on and on and on. And also, inside info, I know pricing or investment's going to be going up. So that's a whole other story, but no matter what, it's well worth it. So, Gary, thank you for being here. And so, Gary, would you please advise a little bit more about Gary Barnes International and how you evolved to where you're at today?
You know, like most of us, I think it's a winding experience, that winding road where sometimes we find ourselves wherever we are without having an intention of showing up there. But my early background was psychology and theology. I was actually a pastor. But I found myself being more of that square peg in a round hole. And going through college, I got my real estate license because I had to pay my own way through. And so coming out of the ministry, I actually just went full-time into real estate and was very successful there. And it was during a time where real estate was booming in California and people were thinking it was a great investment. And I saw some warning signs, if you will. And so I created one of the very first financial planning firms before they even called it that. And over the last, I sold that practice in about 9 years ago now, and it was a 35-year run. But I built that practice to the top 3% in the United States in production, being the solo producer.
Wow, that's impressive. And that was in the 80s, right? I mean, what did you bring it from X amount to an X amount? Can you share that with us, what you did?
Sure. Well, let's go from the real estate. That first year in real estate, it was $1,875. That was the total 12-month total. And the next month or the next year was almost $100,000. And then we moved to Colorado because we wanted to raise our kids outside of the hustle and bustle of California. And my business tanked. I mean, I went from over $100,000 in the 80s, so do the extrapolation of the value of the dollar, and it went down to $30,000. And I knew there was something that was really had to be adjusted. And so I redetermined what I was doing, took it from that $30,000 level, and in the next 4 years, took it to over $800,000. And it really wasn't doing anything different. It was just reapplying those principles that I had developed and learned over the course of those early years. And we went back to some of the basics. And so, yeah. And then after I sold the practice, my clients over the years were asking me, how did I build such a successful business? And I was teaching them and sharing with them. And I have to give the credit to my wife. She came to me and said, quit doing it for free. And so I established, originally it was Max Life International, which is still there. But then Gary Barnes International came out about 7 years ago, rebranded. And so it's international business coaching throughout the United States, and we're in 7 different countries. And then my speaking career, I'm an author, 7 books, and we have a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
That's amazing. So what can you share with us some of those basic fundamental principles? Because sometimes I think people forget the basics, and it's sometimes good to go back. But I know that your basics are not really basics. It's kind of powerful. Does that make sense? It's probably not even the best term.
Well, one of those things is time. And time is an asset that we really don't hold in high esteem. And what I mean by that is we have a tendency to protect our money But if somebody says, let's go to lunch, let's have a coffee, let's go whatever, we have a tendency to just go do it, not looking at it as an asset. And the challenge here is it's an asset that cannot be duplicated. It cannot be retrieved. It cannot be multiplied. Where other assets that we have, let's take money, for example, you could lose it all and recreate it. Time you cannot. And so being aware of how you're investing your time is really important. And then it's really then looking at how do we elevate and separate ourselves? What makes me different than, not better than, someone else in the same industry? And so becoming what I call a people magnet, having my perfect client see me as their possible perfect solution is really a key element of growing a business with the right people, not just with people. Because I think most of us, when we first started, the element of a perfect client was, do they have money and are they breathing? I mean, really, we will take anybody because we're in a need situation. And I think the third thing that is really important is going into all situations in the networking, in the marketing of ourselves, to really go in without what I call an agenda. In other words, I'm there to do triage. I want to find out where Jessica is hurting. I want to find out what your needs, your wants, your desires, your dreams are, and then to see how I can augment or supplement or to enhance that path and pattern for you to get to where you want to go, not where I want to take you or what I can get out of you. And because of that, you become safe. So there's three elements there. Number one is to be seen, because so many of us are the best kept secret. I mean, we have been taught, at least in my generation, that there's no I in team. So we have been taught to stay in the shadows. So if we're not seen, people don't see us as a potential asset or a resource. And then the number two is to be safe. And that's where it comes in with no agenda. No agenda is, to where they don't feel like they're being sold. They don't feel like they're being manipulated. And there's so many of the old sales strategies and techniques that it's really about intimidation and manipulation and how to control. And I totally go opposite to that. And then the third thing is be relevant. If you have a relevant product, I don't care if you're selling and marketing toothpicks. I mean, there is a need for that. So if you have a relevant product or service, absolutely. If you determine it's something that isn't, please get something new. So it's those three things along as a subculture or a subheading really of those other things that I was mentioning.
That's awesome. And can you please share with us some success stories of people? I mean, you don't have to use their names, but just some success stories.
One that immediately came to mind was an individual that, they were very, in most people's eyes, they were successful. They came to me, they actually hired me without ever speaking to me, which to me is like going into the Yellow Pages to hire a brain surgeon. It was like, whoa. But that happened to me in my financial planning firm as well. But when they came, we looked at what they were doing, and the one thing that they were wanting to jettison, they wanted to get out of it. I looked at that and said, that is really your hallmark. That is your anchor product. And why do you want to get rid of it? And the answer was they were bored, which was really unique, because a lot of us, we know what to do and we do it, we get success, but then we stop doing it only because we get bored. We want something new and unique, and we're looking for that other thing to do. And so to their credit, they said, okay, but I also looked at what else could we augment? What are the other products and services that could be developed? And so when they came to me, they were, they were grossing somewhere around $80,000, $90,000 a year. And the last 3 years, we have taken them to almost $400,000 per year. And really, we haven't done anything else. And one of their criteria is they wanted to increase revenue, but also increase their time off. And now they're taking over 3 months a year off with the increased revenue. Another one of my clients came out of corporate America, had never really been in the solo sector, that entrepreneurial, but they knew they wanted to. And so as we were working together, they created now a business that is grossing right around $10 million a year, and this is 10 years later. Another client that I have been working with for a little over a year, has gone from literally around $40,000, $50,000 to almost $300,000, and in a very short period of time. Please, there's no magic pill. Everyone comes in with a different set of scenarios and assets, products, services, ideas. But the idea is they all had one thing in common. They applied the knowledge. Knowledge is not power. It's the application of that knowledge. And it's really one of those areas that to apply it's scary. And I have this belief that we're not afraid of failure. If we were really afraid of failure, we would never really risk ever. We wouldn't go into business. I think most of the time we're truly afraid of success. What happens if they really come? If I build it and they show up, now I'm on the hook. I no longer want it. Now I'm out there in the spotlight and to produce the result that I promised. And so there's some of those things that I help people, because most of the time it's this space, the 6 inches between our ears, that gets in the way. That's where we're stuck. It's not that new widget, that new technique, even the new product or service. In fact, you and I were just on a call where we were talking about, maybe your product or your topic is very general, and a lot of people are talking about it. But at the same time, they don't have you. You are the unique selling position. You are actually the product. And you're displaying and giving that out to your community in a way that's unique. And so, but what we have to do is own it. We have to step into our light and really trust ourselves in that celebrity position and become that leading authority.
Yes, that was a really fun journey today to have that conversation. And do you notice a pattern in businesses that you work with as far as type of industry, personality, anything of that sort?
There really isn't. The most common thing is the beliefs that are running in our subconscious. And a lot of the common ones are, I don't deserve. And so, I have that tendency to work with people that really do care. They're, in a way, they're considered heart-centered, but they're real businesses. They're driver personalities. They can be, there's really, I have an eclectic practice, but it's those underlying things that I don't deserve, I'm not good enough, and those that are running there will actually stop our engagement. We will come right up to the edge, but we will never get on the playing field. And so, we've heard about self-fulfilling prophecies, and that's really what we come up against. And I tell you, in my financial planning practice, one of the worst days of my career was a day that I received a commission of almost $80,000. There's 79,000 and change. You get up to some of those numbers, in the zeros, it's whatever. But it was so guilt-producing because I didn't do any of the really hard work. I didn't do anything extra for that case than I did for some that I maybe received $50 or $100 or $500. And so I started feeling guilty. What made me worth so much more? And the reality was they weren't buying my time. They were buying my value, the thing that I could provide them as a resource of information, of suggestions, of those unique things that I could give them. And that's why I was highly compensated. And we really, all of us deserve that. We deserve to be highly compensated for what we do. Because what we have a tendency to think of as common, what we think of as being really, golly, I think sometimes that I'm selling air. It's almost like cotton candy, where they sell it to us and we put it in our mouth and it just dissolves. But the reality is that those that are attaching to it for that resource, that product, that service, they're doing it because they don't have it. And they're coming to us because we have that connection, that ability to disseminate that information in a way that they can use it. And so we have a discount because it's second nature to us, or we've done it so long that it has just become simple or easy. For those that are coming to us, it isn't. And we forget where we started. When we first started, it wasn't easy for us either. And so don't discount your value just because you're good at it and it's almost like rolling out of bed in the morning.
No, it's really good insight. So here's a question I know that's so common from people. They say there's so many coaches out there, just like there's so many social media experts out there, right? So what really sets Gary apart?
That's where I go back to that elevate and separate. One of the things that I think really separates me in a couple of different ways is, number one, I really truly don't come to the table with an agenda. I'm doing what I call active listening. I have proven, and really there's been a number of studies showing that the human brain cannot listen and think at the same time. Now, we can do it very quickly, but the moment that we stop listening and we start thinking, we are missing those little segments, those nuggets of what's being communicated to us. And so I have trained myself to actively listen to what people are not telling me with words. And so sometimes people think I'm clairvoyant, and I'm highly intuitive, and I'm able to connect dots or to see where the dots don't connect that they're not able to see. So because of that active listening, I become very, very safe in a way. I've had people, and another unique thing is many of my clients are women. And so even on the very first conversation, they'll be telling me a story, and sometimes it's a TMI, and they'll stop, and I go, I don't know why I'm telling you this, and then keep on talking. I'm on, you can stop at any time. But it really is a validation that they have seen that I am a safe individual to deal with or to share. And then the other thing is that, to be able to break apart where a person wants to go, to disassemble what they've done and then put it back together again in a way that, again, works for them, their personality, their timeline, not mine. And so the elevate and separate is, again, be seen as different, not better than. So I don't do that political thing of use me because I'm better than so-and-so, or I'm cheaper or more, whatever. That's all, it has nothing to do with the relationship. And it really is about building that relationship and trust. So I think that is the main thing, as well as my experience, because the equation that has been taught over the years is really for anybody looking for a coach, looking for a social media expert, it doesn't matter, is that you want to find somebody that has done it and been there and still doing it. And that's almost more important, so that they're still adjusting to the marketplace and the things that are changing daily. Because if I was not still doing it, I would be teaching things that I did in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And the reality is they probably wouldn't work as well or at all here in today's economy in the things that we're facing. So the thing is that you're going to want to find somebody that has the experience, but is still in the trenches, still dealing with all the issues that the person that they're working with is dealing with as well.
Well, that makes sense. And with that, you are correct about females. I think is that safe because you've been married how many years?
I've been 41.
41. Sharon is a gem. So can you share with us how you and Sharon met and found love and that fun story and what you love about her?
I've told this from stage, so she knows that I'm going to tell stories, and she rolls her eyes and she goes, oh, you got to be kidding, you did it again. The way we met in college. And the thing is, she was a senior and I was a freshman. But I had taken a little time out between going to college from high school. And so we were working on a project together. She was the chairperson for a retreat that the college was doing, and I was a volunteer. And so we got to know each other, and Christmas time, they had a Christmas event, a Christmas banquet. And so I had a pseudo-friend that wanted to go, and this was during the oil embargo, and I had a car, and so they wanted me to drive and whatever. I didn't have a date, so I asked her on that date, and she originally said no, and then she finally said yes. And so our first date was December of 1973, because we were married in 74. But I had noticed her because earlier that year on that same committee, we had another retreat, and I had taken a date for the retreat, and that date decided to adopt every orphan puppy guy on the retreat. And so I noticed Sharon because she was wearing those tight-fitting jeans. And so I've always teased her about that. She goes, yeah, I was just had a couple of pounds. I go, hey, it worked. And so, but we had our first date in December. February, I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and we were married in June.
Okay, so wow. So from the time you guys went on your first date in December, you're married that June. That's awesome. I love it.
I don't shop.
I love it. Okay, that's so awesome. What's been the secret to your marriage?
You know, early on, before we were able to announce our engagement at the school, at the university, we had to go through premarital counseling, and it was a Christian college. And so it showed with the Taylor Johnson temperament analysis exam back in the day that both of our driver personalities were off the charts. But she was a driver analytical, and I was a driver expressive. And the chaplain, as he explained it to us, he said, that could be a problem, but you'll figure it out. You know, I'm going, whatever. But it was a major point of contention because we could be at odds in just in a nanosecond. And after about, I think it was 9 years, we realized that we loved each other, but we were killing each other. We were jabbing each other. We had 2 boys at that point, and we had determined not to stay together just because of the children, that we could stay friends. We knew we loved each other, so we wanted to be friends, and but we decided to go ahead and go to counseling. And one of the neatest things that we learned there was how to fight fair, because it wasn't the absence of fighting that was going to allow us to continue, because if our personalities just were not going to allow for that. But in order to be able to really connect and thrive, it was about how to fight fair, how to listen. And I think that's one of the reasons that I teach the personalities and the listening skills that I do now, because it was out of that. Because what would happen, I would leave the house and Sharon would go, you know, have a fulfilling day or something around that. I'd go, gee, I'm just going to, you know, strap a 350 engine on my back. I can't have any fun. I'm just going to go out and, you know, trudge through the day. And I would look back at her and go, yeah, I have fun. And she'd get upset because, don't you think I'm going to do anything of importance? I'm just going to frit the day away. And in reality, all we were saying is have a good day. And so really it was that communication coming back to the common elements, really being able to support each other also in the things that fulfill us. For me, it's things that go fast and go boom. Her idea of a really exciting weekend is quilting. So it's like people look at us and they go, how did you guys, number one, get together, and number two, stay together? But we've allowed each other to really blossom and fulfill themselves in the things that are important to them. She's a psychotherapist. And so she deals with a segment of the population that are gifted and introverted, and I scare them. And so it's really a unique relationship. But we have proven, and I tell all the ladies that I come in contact with that, see, I'm proof I'm trainable. Men are trainable.
That's so funny. So fight fair, what does that mean?
Fighting fair is not going for the jugular. So sometimes what happens is that we will have a circumstance and we won't deal with the issue. We'll gunny sack it, we'll save it up. And when we get enough of it, then we dump the whole load on the person that we're dealing with. We also do that in business and with our clients. It's really important to understand the dynamic. And so then we would go for the jugular. We go for the unfair thing. So if I was to know that there was a sensitive area that Sharon had, I would point that out first. It may or may not have anything to do with what we were talking about or the argument, the disagreement, but I would go for the knockout punch first. And we do that out of that self-preservation. There is a process that I teach called the little genius. And where I know we don't have time today to go all the way through it, but I really believe that there's 2 personages, if you will, within us. Our subconscious is that little boy, that little girl, that 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. And then we have the conscious, which is the adult, and it's getting them to play nice with each other. And then what happens when we have an argument, particularly when we get hurt, we have a tendency to go to that little kid, and the little kids go for the jugular. They trip, they bite, they scratch, they do whatever. because that's what they know how to do. It's a self-preservation. And when we fight fair, it's about communication. It's about understanding what the other person is saying, where their desires are, where are they hurting, and then come to some kind of mutual agreement that works for both. It's not that total submission. It's about total understanding. And there's never a total understanding, but a better understanding about the position of that other person. And then coming to some agreement to move forward with.
Hmm. Yes, the little genius. We always have our inner child. Speaking of that, what did you love to do as a kid, Gary? Do you have some fun memories?
You know, I was banging on everything. And my parents just really went nuts with it. I'm a drummer. And I still drum. And, you know, I call it my therapy. And so that, and I used to, I love to look at the sky, both at night and, you know, in the daytime I watch the clouds. But in my high school years, my junior high and high school years, we lived in Palm Springs, or Desert Hot Springs, went to Palm Springs High School. And in the desert at night, the sky would be very, very clear. You could see all the stars. And I've always loved space and all that kind of thing. I've always wanted to go to space. And now with Richard Branson, I can do it. But I would go up on the roof and just lay there for hours, just experiencing the immense expanse of what it expanded my reality of how insignificant really we are in the universe, but how important we are because we are here. So there's a combination there.
That's so cool. You love to drum.
Oh yeah.
So see what you love to do as a kid evolved, and you always, I know, like to teach people how to be seen. So maybe the drumming, being heard, seen, ties in together.
Yeah, you know, there's a unique thing with the drumming as well, is that I love physics. I love, you know, the ideas of what we're not seeing. But what we have learned through quantum physics and physics is everything has a rhythm. Everything has, there is a hum, there is a rhythm in the universe. And so being in step with ourselves, then we call it being in the zone, or being out of step, and then we trip up and we nothing seems to fit, and we're discombobulated, or where we get overwhelmed easily. And so it's really interesting with the drumming. There was one time when one of the guys that I was playing with, and we played gospel rock. And so it's really rock and roll, you know, with Christian words. And so I was out of sync. I just was just not in line with anybody. And he came over and whispered in my ear. And he said, "Gary, stop thinking." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Stop thinking." And I went, "Oh." Because when you're drumming, you have to be ahead of everyone else. And so you have to feel, you have to respond. If you think, you're a half a beat off. And so this is where we start tying into our intuition, that still small voice within us that we sometimes think is us. For me, I really believe that's that outside intelligence, God, you know, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like that's that nudge that when we follow it, we're going to be in the right place. We're going to have that foundation. We're going to be okay.
I really love that. I absolutely love that. You and I have had conversations that sometimes you just can't force it. You just have to let it be, right? You just have to let it be. And I really love it. Can you please tell us about your three sons, their names, and what you value about them?
You know, my oldest son, and I have to really expand a little bit, my oldest son and his wife, Matt and Kelly, are both chiropractors. And, you know, one of the things that they are the ones that gave us our grandchildren, Aubrey and Andrew. And the thing that I really appreciate about both of them is their tenacity to detail. And to be able to look at building a practice, going through school, they're both chiropractors. They had that drive to where they're wanting to go, and they're creating the life and the lifestyle around that. And then our middle son is Jason and Desiree. I'm going to get killed here. And Jason has done all of my graphic design. He went to school to be he has a degree in photography. And Jason is the unofficially adopted son. The adversity that he came through and was able to survive and thrive through that, and to be able to come into our family and to be a part of us in a way that is truly special. And the thing that I see about Jason is his creativity. He has that ability to see things that are not there. I mean, it's just always amazing to me to see an artist that just takes a bunch of elements and all of a sudden you go, wow. I can do that same picture, but I wouldn't have the wow factor, and he does. Our third son, Chris, and his wife, Abby. Chris went to his teachers in high school and said he graduated from high school because of baseball, and that is very true. And so he was going into pro. He wanted to be a professional baseball player. He went through college on baseball scholarships, as little as they are. But somewhere at the end of his career, he actually ended up in the hospital with a brain bleed because some kid beat him up. And there was a change in him after that. Not only did he have to deal with the learning adjustment for himself, but he had a different value change. And he said, I want to be a pastor. And so coming out of school, he went to Denver Seminary, got his master's in divinity, and now he's a youth pastor. And his wife, he met while he was in school, and he used to teach everybody that he was dating a dancer in a certain area of Denver that is known for its risque, but she was part of a dance troupe that had a dance studio in that same area. So she is a professional dancer, choreographer, and dance teacher, and now going back to schools and just passed her MCAT to be a ER doc. And so I look at the things with Chris is that he took a adversity, and he took that adversity and he multiplied it into where he's challenging and developing young children. You know, he's in middle school kids, which he's in his mid-30s now, and he's really attuned to the middle school kids. They think he's one of them, and so does his wife at times. And so, but he really was, he persevered. And that's the thing that, you know, we look at all the kids, that they looked at what they wanted to do, and they didn't have a silver spoon, or, you know, they didn't have that golden ticket. They all had the challenges, and because of those challenges, I'm so proud of them. They're doing, there are still challenges, but they're doing well. And I don't have a fear or a concern about the future of what they'll be or what they'll do, because they have the basics.
Wow, that's incredible. And can you share with us a little bit, a little snapshot of a book that I love, and I know my kid loves, How a Beaver Saved My Life? Can you share that with us?
You know, it's a story that I didn't tell for many years. Back in 1988, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And because I was in an industry of financial planner, I didn't want to tell anybody, because people don't want to, you know, deal with somebody, because I was told I would be dead or in a wheelchair within 10 years. And so I really put it out of mind, and I developed a process, though, through visualization, to where a lot of the aspects that I was dealing with, I had gone numb from the neck down. No feelings at all. I lost the ability to write. I mean, all the things that, you know, you really don't want to happen to you did. And so I developed this visualization. When I sold my practice, I finally decided to share the story, primarily because I got stimulated with an email from Joe Vitale. He was in The Secret. He wrote The Attractor Factor and The Attractor Factor 2. And he was looking for stories, and I finally said, okay, I'd put it in a little bit of a article, and I sent it off, and it ended up in a book that he wrote called Expect Miracles. It went around the world, big in Eastern Europe. And so I decided, oh, well, maybe this is okay. So I decided to finally write a book about it, but it was going to be my third book out. And the first two books, I was struggling. I was just going through like molasses. It was just, I I tell people I am a speaker that has had to become an author. I hate writing, but I know it's necessary. And so what happened was I decided to put the first two books on hold and focus on this book. 6 days later, it was done. And that book started out Into the Night, The Road from Adversity to Triumph. And it did very well. But what happened was I started receiving presents in the mail, and one of them was a 3-foot beaver. And my coach at the time said, Gary, when people start sending you physical representation of your story, your message, you've got to address that. And he said, we're going to change the title to How a Beaver Saved My Life. And that book now has taken me to all of the major ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, 4 syndicated shows on PBS. And then last year, where you and I were able to share the stage on TEDx, that book was the main reason that I was invited to be a speaker for the TEDx program. And so the book is that I didn't want it to be about an adversity, or I didn't want to be about a MS book. MS is the story. I'm the story, but not the message. The message is, how do we overcome adversity? Whether it be in business, finances, relationships, mental health, whatever it is, how do we overcome those roadblocks, those speed bumps in the road? And that's why I think it has really, gone around the world, literally.
That is so awesome. So if someone could describe you in 3 words, what would it be?
Oh, golly. 3
I
words.
know.
You should have asked me, told me that was going to be a question. Loves to live.
What I admire about that is you did a statement. Everybody else did, separate words. Typically you hear fun, loving, caring.
Yeah, part of my mission statement is to make a difference. And the other part is to empower, but it's not just living. It's, breathing is one thing that we all do. But how many people get to the end and go, I wish? And so when I flew the P-51 World War II fighter, when I've been on stages, when I've bungee jumped, when I've driven a destruction derby car, other race cars, I've said yes. I call it the power of yes. And loving to live is acknowledging the gift of life, the gift of opportunity, the responsibility that we have of using this thing. And really, we're coming full circle back, I think, and I've never equated it to this, but to time. We've been given the gift of time, and we call it life, but what do we do with that gift? How do we really make a difference? Leaving a legacy, having someone, not necessarily where in 3 generations they're going to know our name, but maybe something we leave that they'll be able to use as a principle and be able to be better for it. That's really what it's all about for me.
That's awesome. So do you have any other fun facts to share with us?
Oh, golly, fun facts. Like what? My brain just shut off when you said that.
It could be anything. It could be, you did mention about bungee jumping and the plane. It could be your childhood, adult life, anything that's just really fun and memorable that stands out to you, besides your children and everything, which I know we covered.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have always enjoyed airplanes. And flying that P-51 was, some people say it's a bucket list, some people say you're an adrenaline junkie, and it really wasn't. It was that act of freedom. It was truly one of the best days of my life. I went to Kissimmee, Florida to do it, and Crazy Horse was the airplane. I flew with a former F-16 pilot, and we did all the acrobatics. We did, the somersaults. We just did it all. And it was one of those days with the big cumulus clouds, and we were kind of dancing in and out of the clouds. We did a tandem takeoff. As I think back, so many people say, well, how did that happen? Were you just lucky? And I went, no, it was on purpose. And for me, and it goes back to another process that I teach around get statements, which is much more than affirmations. It's really about setting out the intention and then creating a roadmap to that intention and creating what I call your own personal deja vu. So a lot of my really fun facts are, around, doing things that people don't expect of me. whether it be climbing a 14,000-foot mountain, or flying a P-51 fighter, or being a drummer. Being a drummer really is an interesting thing when I'm dealing with teenagers or the young cons, or or the young professional, what are they called? Anyway, the 20-somethings, and where they look at me and they go, "You're a drummer?" I go, "Yeah, someday you're going to be my age too." So
the millennials. Is that what you're thinking? Okay, millennials. Okay.
And but I think it's about embracing the opportunity, saying yes, instead of saying, that's for someone else. If I do this, I'm not able, I'm taking it from someone else. And really what I think is that when we engage in life, we're giving others permission to also engage in life and to do the things that they really enjoy doing. One of my favorite places on earth is the beach. And so when I'm speaking in California or Florida, wherever I get, anywhere near an ocean, I always add in extra time just to spend some time at the beach. And so that time of reflection, it just, I love hearing people's stories. I really follow Will Rogers' adage from the 1920s when he said, "There are no strangers, just friends that I have not met yet."
That's very true, very true. So Gary, what would you say your purpose in life is?
To make a difference and to empower, but not my power given to you, but helping whoever I'm with to identify and connect the power that's already within them. We all have it. It's just whether or not we choose to turn that light switch on to connect it. Because it's as simple as that. It's about accepting and then applying.
So I love your get statement. So can we just expand on that a little bit, and then I know we have to wrap up. So can you please share with us a little bit more about that, Gary?
Oh, sure. And I have to go back and give credit to Tony Robbins, because Tony Robbins really was the start of the stimulation for the get statement, because he had something called the must statement, M-U-S-T. And I'm the personality, if you tell me I must do something, I'm going to resist it. I don't, not really proud of that. But so I was sitting there one day saying, what could I change there so that I liked the premise? And all of a sudden, I literally, in my mind, I saw the word must fall out and the word get fall in. And I went, oh, I get to open my present. It's not that I must open my present. It's the same present, but one has a control element to it. And I didn't want to leave it there, so I wanted an acronym for it. And I was thinking, all of a sudden it came to me that it was Great Expectations Today. And so what it looks like is setting out a statement of future reality today. And so one of them that I use a lot is around dollars. So if we're looking at what do we want to receive in revenue this year, it would sound something like, I received $100,000 with $80,000 net revenue by December 15th, 2015. And there's some key words in that. And number one is, I received. I didn't say I work hard. I go out and do all the things that I think I have to spend a lot of extra time, a lot of extra effort. No, I'm just in a position of receiving. And then the two numbers, gross and net. Most of the time I find that people only use one number, the big number. But that big number, you have expenses, taxes, other things that come out of it. And so you may reach the big number, but it's not enough to do what you want to do. So you feel like, oh, golly, it didn't work. And then it's by. I have a date of accomplishment, not a deadline, but a date of accomplishment. And so it can happen anytime between that date and earlier. And then my date is December 15th, because I don't want to work the last 2 weeks of the year. I want to enjoy the holidays. And then specifically for that year, so 2016, 17, whatever it might be. And so what I do is write that get statement out every single day. Don't type it, write it, handwrite it. You can print it, printing, but use it with a pen or a pencil. I like using a pen because it signifies to me that it's permanent. And so, but you do something, we're really reprogramming what's called the reticular cells. It's a group of cells in the back of our brains that is identifying what you are allowed to see, because we have so much more information coming into us than we are in our conscious minds are able to actually assimilate. So it determines what to allow through. And so as we're writing this, I'm activating my kinesthetic, my physical connection. When I put it on paper, I see it. So I'm activating the visual. And when I see it, I actually am saying it to myself. So now, even though it's not audible, I'm still doing the auditory. So I've connected all three ways that we are reprogramming ourselves literally by doing that. So we write it out every single day. You can do this in 8 to 10 categories, and it has worked miracles. And then so many clients that tell me, oh, do I have to do this? It's too simple. And I go, just trust me, just do it. And usually within a very short period of time, they come back and they go, it works. I go figure. So yeah, it really is a very special process that I adjusted and then recreated into a whole process now.
So you said there's 8 to 10 different categories of get statements you should have. And how long should you write out for 30 days or?
And I do it every day. I mean, it's just because the reality is that like any habit, if you stop doing it, it will go away. So over a 7 to 10 day period, usually maybe 12, you will start memorizing what they are. If number 7, number 6, whatever. If you stop doing it, you will have forgotten it within 2 or 3 days. So you will forget it much faster than you learn it. And so if it's something that I really want, why would I stop? Again, going back to something I said earlier, when things work and then we get bored and we say, well, why am I doing this anymore? And just go on to something else. And so, no, this is something that I teach that I really encourage everyone to do it at least for 30 days to see what your results are. But, you know, the reality is if you stop, it's going to stop working for you.
No, that's good insight. So, you know, you may want to write out what you want to get for your health or what you want to get monetarily or personal and write out every day for 30 days and see what happens.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's free. You have nothing to lose.
That's awesome. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Gary, before we wrap up?
You know, I just thank you. It's been a little over a year that we met. It feels like a lot longer in a good way. And, you know, it's just really been a big blessing to have you in my life as well.
Thank you, Gary. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom, knowledge, and your purpose and all you do in this world.
You're welcome.
Have a great one, Gary.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.